There's a young woman who asked for an appointment with her pastor to talk with him about a sin about which she was worried. When she saw him, she said, "Pastor, I've become aware of a sin in my life which I cannot control. Every time I'm at church, I begin to look around at the other women and I realize that I'm the prettiest one in the whole congregation. None of the others can compare with my beauty. Pastor, what can I do about this sin?" The pastor replied, "Mary, that's not a sin. That's just a mistake." Today we're going to continue or kind of go back to what we've been looking at throughout much of this summer, which is the Psalms. And there's so many different chapters, so many different of the Psalms that speak into the areas of our lives that we need. And today we deal with a very real problem, and it's pride. Probably one of the most difficult problems we deal with as believers. When we become impressed with ourselves, thinking we're better than others, thinking we're the prettiest in the congregation, getting caught up in our successes or our wealth or our talents, thinking that we can do everything on our own. We look at Psalms to inform our feelings and our situations, to understand how we can look at the way that we experience the world. And we do that today in Psalm 49. I want to invite you to turn with me there. Psalm chapter 49. This is what it says. "Listen to this, all you people. Pay attention, everyone in the world. High and low, rich and poor, listen. For my words are wise and my thoughts are filled with insight. I listen carefully to many proverbs and solve riddles with inspiration from a harp. Why should I fear when trouble comes, when enemies surround me? They trust in their wealth and boast of great riches, yet they cannot redeem themselves from death by paying a ransom to God. Redemption does not come so easily, for no one can ever pay enough to live forever and never see the grave. Those who are wise must finally die, just like the foolish and the senseless, leaving all their wealth behind. The grave is their eternal home, where they will stay forever. They may name their estates after themselves, but their fame will not last. They will die just like animals. This is the fate of fools, though they are remembered as being wise. Like sheep they are led to the grave, where death will be their shepherd. In the morning the godly will rule over them. Their bodies will rot in the grave, far from their grand estates. But as for me, God will redeem my life. He will snatch me from the power of the grave. So don't be dismayed when the wicked grow rich and their homes become ever more splendid. For when they die, they take nothing with them. Their wealth will not follow them into the grave. In this life they consider themselves fortunate and are applauded for their success. But they will die like all before them and never again see the light of day. People who boast of their wealth don't understand. They will die just like the animals." So this is kind of a harsh psalm. You know, he speaks to, and what we often do when we read the Psalms is we see prayers. You know, we're crying out to God. We're seeking God in times of trouble. We're crying out in times that we need Him. We're even coming to God for forgiveness in the Psalms, and again coming in prayer. In this, it almost feels more like proverb, where he's giving some understanding to the ways that we feel. And in this, there's a pretty serious discrepancy between those who have and those who don't have. The wealthy, the powerful, the successful, and me, the writer of Psalm, the one who's speaking. And what it comes down to over and over is we're all going to the same grave, right? No matter how much you have, it's all going to end. In the 80s, there was a bumper sticker that said, whoever dies with the most toys wins. Now, I grew up, a little bit later, some in the 80s, but I was a teenager in the 90s, and I remember there was the backlash to that, which was whoever dies with the most toys still dies. And so what we realize is that the things of this world that make us seem so happy don't last. None of what you're impressed with lasts. Wealth, popularity, wisdom, good looks, success, the things that everyone around us is holding as the greatest values, none of them last. But pride will cause us many problems. Loving those things in ourselves and seeking those things for ourselves can mess us up. A couple ways that happens. The first one, it makes us think that we are better than we are. I told the kids the story of the Tower of Babel. It goes like this. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they've begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. The story is about people coming to the point where they believed they were so powerful and so good on their own that they could do amazing things. So they said, we're going to build a city. We figured out how to make bricks. We're going to build this incredible tower. We're going to show what we are capable of. You know, we see some of this today. Through some incredible technological and scientific advances, we are able to do things we've never been able to do in the past, to the point that we have, the desire, it seems, for many to create life on our own, to sustain life on our own, to be completely self-sufficient apart from God. Our pride makes us think we are better than we are. In the story of the Tower of Babel, God reminds his creation who they are and where their place is in all of this. But pride will mess that up for us. Second thing it does to us, first, it makes us think we're better than we are. Second, it keeps us from admitting our own sin. Pride keeps us from admitting our own sins. And we talked just a few weeks ago about David and the story with Bathsheba. And if you remember, David, this great guy who went against Goliath and defeated him, who became the king, was anointed even though he was the smallest and youngest of his brothers. He became the king, and the Bible says he was a man after God's own heart. But there was a point where he also showed his sinfulness. He saw a beautiful woman. He took her as his wife, even though she was already married. So he essentially had her husband killed, sent him to the front lines of battle so that he would die. In all of this, he was blind to his sinfulness. He didn't notice the steps he had taken, those ways he had moved further and further. And imagine being David. You're the guy that killed Goliath. You're the guy that God chose to be king. You're the guy that has done the right things so many times throughout your life. And when we allow pride to creep in and to feel good about who we are and what we've been doing on our own, we sometimes forget the sin that also creeps in. And it took a prophet coming to him and telling him a story about somebody else to get him to see his sin. We see it today. We see leaders today, pastors, politicians, leaders across the board, that we see over and over again falling into trouble. And that pride, that desire not to let anyone see those flaws, that desire to rest on what it is I'm so good at, keeps them from admitting that sin. The third thing it does to us, it blinds us to our faults. When I see only my talents, I can often miss my weaknesses. I think when it comes to being a follower of Jesus, but even just being an adult, one of the most important things we can have is self-awareness. To be able to recognize the things that I'm great at and the things that I'm really not so good at. Whenever we go through our Discover First class with those who are interested in new membership or baptism in our church, one of the final things we do is we do a spiritual gift survey. And it's a bunch of questions. You fill them all out. You answer questions about all these different things. And at the end, you fill it all out and you have a chance to see what are some of the ways that God has gifted you. And what's so fun about that is we sit around a room and we start talking about what are the gifts you're high in? What are you good at? And different ones of us have completely different things that we're really high at. And Katie loves to point out to everyone that the one that I'm lowest at is mercy. Which, let me qualify that for a second before I get myself in trouble. Mercy, the gift of mercy, is the ability to naturally empathize with people. I got the word eventually. Empathize with people and see that they're struggling. So if you have the gift of mercy, you're somebody that can look across the room and go, oh, something's wrong with so-and-so. I better go check on them and see how they're doing. And I've learned that this is very accurate for me. Now, it doesn't mean I don't care. It means I don't see it. And so, thankfully, I have a spouse who has a great gift of empathy, and she can come up to me and say, what's wrong with so-and-so? And I'm like, I don't know. I better go find out. I didn't notice. But it's hard sometimes as we do that because you recognize that there are things I'm not good at. And for each of us, that's sometimes hard to handle. I want to look at the stuff I'm good at. I want to list to you my top spiritual gifts and show you how great of a leader I am, or how great of a teacher I am, or how great of a this or that I am because God has gifted me in that way. But it's important for me to also go look at where I struggle so that I can be real about who I am in Christ. Self-awareness is incredibly important. And when we are proud of ourselves, when we allow pride into us, it blinds us to our own faults. I try and teach my kids about confidence. That confidence is knowing what you're good at, but also being aware of what you're not good at. Arrogance is thinking I'm good at everything. I'm better than all of you. I'm the prettiest person in our congregation. But confidence is knowing this is who I am, this is who God has made me to be, and this is where I struggle. It's an important trait for us to have. Matthew 7, 1-5, Stuart read for us earlier, but it reminds us how easy it is for us to get focused on what we see in others and not our own issues. Do not judge others, and you will be not be judged. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? Pride does that to us. Look at you and the problems you are having. I love the terminology. You notice a speck, the tiniest little thing in somebody else, when As the NIV says, a plank is sticking out of your own eye. Pride blinds us to our faults. And it keeps us from asking for help. This is probably the hardest part of pride for me. I hate asking for help. I love being independent. I love being self-sufficient. I want to be able to build my own tower and prove how awesome I am. I want to be able to finish what I started and show that I could do it. I want to be able to get through the hard times so that I can show that I was tough enough to get through. I want to be independent, and I don't need anybody. But that story about the Tower of Babel is exactly the point there. God didn't destroy that situation. He didn't come down and scatter the people because he thought that they were going to make it to heaven with this tower. Who cares about that? What God cared about is the whole purpose for our creation is dependence on him, is relationship with him. And if we think we don't need that, then none of this is working. So this desire that pride gives us to keep us from asking for help, to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, to not need anybody else, is antithetical to why God has created us in the first place. He created you to need him. He created you to need each other. That's why we're all here. Pride is a problem. It's a problem for me. I hate to show my weaknesses. I want to be able to do everything by myself. It's probably a problem for you too. We have this human, natural desire to try and lift ourselves. And it goes even further back than the tower. Happened in the garden when the serpent came and appealed to that desire to lift ourselves, to not need God's provision. Instead, come look, if you eat this, you'll be like God. You won't need God to tell you what's right and wrong anymore. You'll have that ability yourself. From the very beginning, pride has snuck in to us. David Rhodes says, pride is the dandelion of the soul. Its root goes deep. Only a little left behind sprouts again. Its seeds lodge in the tiniest encouraging cracks, and it flourishes in good soil. The danger of pride is that it feeds on goodness. Benjamin Franklin said, there's perhaps no one of our natural passions so hard to subdue as pride. Beat it down, stifle it, mortify it as much as one pleases, it is still alive. Even if I could conceive that I had completely overcome it, I should probably be proud of my humility. The answer to pride is simple. Not simple to do, but simple to understand. The answer to pride is this. We've got to know our place. We've got to know our place. We are good because God made us. Without the Creator, our worth disappears. If you're someone who loves art or is an artist yourselves, you recognize that in the art world, this is very much true. And I don't understand any of it because I can't draw a stick figure. But in the art world, what matters as much as the masterpiece is who created it. So we know that if a well-known artist has a painting that's available, you see the value of that skyrocket because of who the one that painted it is. It's the same with us. We are good not because of what we can do, what we can earn, or how we look, or what we have. We are good because we are created by a good God who has made us. The answer to pride is recognizing that we are good because of Him. We do good because of Him. Everything that is good about this place is because of Him. So we lean on Him. We bask in our dependence of God. When we accept that, we hopefully can let Him banish that pride from us and allow us to walk with him in confidence.